everyone. I'm Sarah Wilde. I'm the student coordinator for the Image of God Chapels. And welcome. As we transition from this time of Thanksgiving into his time of celebrating Christ's birth, I just want us to pause and reflect on Christ's provision. Throughout our lives, God has been providing, whether it be in big ways or small ways, and whether we realize it or not, God has been providing. So today we've invited 3 students to share their stories of God's love and provision for us. These stories are authentic and beautiful. As you listen to these stories, I invite you into a time of reflection. Ask yourself, how has God been providing in my life? And as an image bearer of God, am I thankful for his provision? Take time to listen, to reflect, and then to start conversation. We hope that this Image of God Chapel will encourage openness and vulnerability within our community here at Biola as we seek to root more and more of our identities in how God provides for us. And that being said, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Angel.
My name is Angel Jesudasen, and I am made in the image of God. I'm a public relations major, and I'm a senior graduating in May. First, I would just like to say that I am so completely honored and humbled to be standing in front of you all today. By telling you my story, I pray that the Lord would use it to either encourage or inspire or renew your faith and trust in the Lord. I pray that this serves as a reminder that no matter how picture perfect or put together someone's life may look, we all have a story. And as I share this morning, I want you all to know that this is not about me, and it's not about my family or what we've done, but it's about what God's done and is continuing to do in my life. So I'm not telling you my story, I'm telling you God's story. So here's a little bit of my part in God's story. I was born and raised in Costa Mesa, California. I was brought up in a strong Christian, God-loving family. I experienced the Lord for the first time at a pretty young age. My family's life was rocked and turned upside down when I was 5 years old. In August of 2001, my dad passed away suddenly overnight at the age of 40, leaving my mom with 5 young kids, all ranging from age 11 to age 1. I am the middle child of the 5. My 2 older siblings graduated from Biola in May of 2015. I am a senior here. My brother John is a sophomore here, and my youngest brother is a senior in high school, and so he just turned in his Biola application, so we'll see if he continues the family legacy. But needless to say, Biola is a very special place to my family. After my dad passed away, my mom never had to go back to work full-time. No attribute of God is more real to me than his divine providence. He has provided not only everything we've ever needed, but everything we've ever wanted, like a Biola education for 4, maybe now 5 kids. Throughout my entire life, I have witnessed firsthand that the Lord provides in mysterious ways, big and small. Yes, Biola has been a huge investment for my family, but there is no explanation to how a single mom can send 4 kids to Biola other than the continuous and miraculous faithfulness of the Lord. My mom is the strongest woman I know. She has shown my siblings and I what it looks like to trust God in the hardest of times. Ever since the night that my mom was sitting at the hospital with my dad, she has chosen not to question God's will or purpose. She prayed very boldly in the hospital room that day, "I don't like what you're doing, but I'm going to choose to trust you." My mom is the kind of woman who sings "Give Thanks" regardless of if it's sunny or stormy outside. We grew up in a home where we talked about my dad's passing not as a sad thing, but more of a testament to how God has been the best earthly and heavenly father for us. As much as I miss my dad, and the amazing earthly father he was, and I wish he was here every single day, I would not trade the life that the Lord has blessed me with, even if I could. All that to say, my family, especially my mom, has kind of been the backbone to my faith. When I came to Biola as a freshman, my biggest prayer to the Lord was that he would make my faith my own and not an attachment of my mom's. I knew what it looked like to go to church every Sunday and pray continually and live a Christian life, but it wasn't until missions conference of my freshman year that I experienced this huge radical change in my faith. I remember walking out of one of the sessions and realizing the difference between loving Jesus and being in love with Jesus. And once I understood how loved I was by the King, by my Father, my life looked a lot different. And through this, the Lord had answered my prayer by making my faith not an attachment of my family's, but my own. From then on, my spiritual journey has looked pretty similar to a lot of Biola students. The Lord takes us through different seasons, and there's dry seasons and there's fruitful seasons, but if there's one thing that I've learned through all of these different seasons is that He is so consistent in it, even if our life seems so not. Even in this room, I think that we can all agree that we have different opinions on our earthly fathers, but I think that we could all agree that any good and loving father would want to fight and provide for his children. And in that exact same way, the Lord wants to do the same for us. He is the best father we could ever ask for, and since He is the best father, He will continually provide for us. And if He doesn't come through in the way that we necessarily want or expect Him to, I guarantee that He will come through in some other way. Because the Lord does not leave or forsake us, because if He did, I would not be standing here, and my family would not be standing here. God taking my dad home was a pivotal point in my life, but by the sheer grace of God, it was not the end. So I thank you for listening to my part in God's story. I hope that you would be encouraged to trust our Heavenly Father through the different seasons that He's going to take you through. Because for me, He is the best father a girl could ever ask for, and I know that He will continue to provide for me. My name is Angel Jesudasen, and I am made in the image of God.
My name is Phillip, and I am made in the image of God. As I've been reflecting on my personal journey here at Biola, I think about my original testimony I wrote when I first applied here. I wrote how I never had that glamorous testimony of God revealing Himself to me in some miraculous manner. Rather, I simply came to Christ because my parents were Christian. However, I learned to appreciate my story over time by seeing the consistency of their biblical teachings that shaped me into who I was that day. They always reminded me, through the various trials in my life, to always remain close to God. And as life would have it, my testimony didn't just stop there, but continues on today. I am surprised to find myself here as a graduating senior here at Biola and getting my degree. I never imagined myself applying to a Christian university so late in my life because of the various challenges I had growing up. Because of my parents' divorce and remarriages and through other circumstances, it always seemed like my life had the rhythm of changing every 2 years to a new school, new jobs, new friends, and even a new place to call home. It never seemed like I had a sense of stability in my life other than the faith of my childhood. So after graduating high school, I attended 2 different community colleges over the span of 3 years, and spent a whole year working in different places. I was then expecting to move on to the next stage of my life, towards my career, but I felt God lead me to transfer and apply to Biola here instead. And while my time here at Biola has been a true blessing, it has also been a struggle. As a transfer student, I originally came to Biola already holding on to a really bad case of senioritis. And now as a real graduating senior here today, I found that senioritis has evolved into doubt of God's plan in my life. I found that I've struggled with the anxious feeling of not feeling comfortable where I am in my life and asking God why I'm still here. And although these questions are important to be thinking about and praying for, these questions of my future became more than just curiosity, but they became my identity and my self-worth. So with the concern of moving on in my life, I attempted to make my life about how much I can manage. I took 18 units of class credit, I worked 2 jobs, I took on way too many projects than I could handle, and as it sounds, it didn't work out really well. My classes went from A's to C's. I was missing deadlines for work. I was struggling keeping close friendships in my life. And most unfortunately, that trust I built with God my entire life was broken. So even though my parents taught me growing up to always put trust in God in my life, I found myself doing the opposite here and ended up being caught up in the fears and insecurities of my future. Yet, throughout my time here at Biola, God has repeatedly called me to remember what I already know to be true about his nature and then expanding upon it. The constant messages that I've been learning from him through my Bible classes and chapels and mentors and friends is to trust God in everything. Just as God has helped me through the complexities of my past, he will surely guide me in my future as well. It is then with hope and security in God that I have been learning to be present to what God has in store for me right here and right now. My identity is not in what I do or where I go, but it is found in God's love for me. So while there still are questions in my head of where I'm going to go next year, I am learning to be in a posture of humbleness and thankfulness for what God has already given me. I have heard numerous times that life after college doesn't get easier, that life continues to have its own struggles and temptations. But as I move closer to the end of my time here at Biola, I believe that God is making sure that I don't leave without knowing that important truth, that God is with me in every aspect of my life. And of course, he's not calling me to perfection, but it's simply to remain diligent in my faith. No matter where I have been or where I am going, I can always thank God for being constant in his faithfulness. Some of my favorite worship lyrics frequently remind me that in all my life, in every season, you are still God, and I have a reason to sing, and I have a reason to worship. My name is Phillip, and I am made in the image of God.
Hello. My name is Chelsea Goza, and I too am made in the image of God. It is so surreal to be up here. I am a fifth-year nursing student here at Biola, graduating in May from the program. We can do it. We're nursing majors. We're here. So my story kind of goes like this. It's a story of how God has redeemed and reconstructed the ideas of love and acceptance and really provision in my life. I've grown up in a single-parent household. My mom has been my favorite counselor, my best friend, and the biggest encourager throughout my entire life. I have never known any different, only ever meeting my father, my real earthly father, once as an infant, which I don't remember. I was not at all, in my mind, lacking then. I had two incredible grandparents who kind of took in that role of what another parent would be. My grandfather, who I was very close to as a young girl, really stepped into that role with me, and that was something that I didn't really realize until older, when I could kind of think that way. He became very sick later on, and that's when I really realized that my family dynamic was really different than the people around me. I became increasingly aware that I felt like something was missing, or rather someone was missing. My mom never has come short of ever trying to provide for me. From when I was an infant, she began to work and work and work and work until she couldn't anymore to provide sustenance, to provide a home. But my grandparents also helped a lot in allowing us to live with them until I was the age of 6. My mom just has built into me such a diligence in work, such a motivation to get things done because of the way that I've seen her work for us. In the midst of all of that, though, I still felt lonely and I felt like I was lacking. As I dug into these feelings as I grew up, I acknowledged that I really was angry and I was hurt. I was a young girl that desired relationship with a man to provide affirmation and security, to provide comfort and safety. I had only ever spoken to my father really briefly during holiday seasons, during Christmas, or birthday phone calls from the age of 9 to 13. And these are some of the most uncomfortable conversations I've ever had with anyone. I was so eager, though, to be in a relationship with him because I wanted to accept all that I could receive from this man who was supposed to fill this role for me. At the end of our phone calls, I just would always feel so confused because he would say, "I love you." And I didn't know what that meant. I was a 9, 10, 11-year-old girl that desired to receive that so bad, but when he couldn't remember how old I was turning that year, it felt really difficult. to believe that what he said he loved me was true love, was real affirmation, was acceptance. He was halfway across the world. How was he providing? I think as I got older, I kind of started to mull over these things of what is the difference here? Why do I feel this way if he says he loves me? Fast forward a few years. At this point, my grandfather had got really sick. It was about the time I was 13 and when my dad and I stopped being in contact together. And my grandfather got really sick and actually passed. And at the same time, my grandmother, who I was really close with as a young girl, got diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's. These are both super special people in my life. Like I said, they helped raise me from the time I was born till I was 6, when my mom and I could kind of afford to move out, and then they would still pick me up from school every day. They would make me dinner. My grandmother being diagnosed with Alzheimer's was probably one of the hardest things that our family has gone through after the death of my grandfather. But once she was diagnosed, my mom and I soon moved in just because we wanted to help care for her. My grandmother, we called Gigi. She was a person that I woke up to and went to sleep with. She was a person that I got to care for with my mom, the privilege to care for her for 8 years before the decline just got too much and started affecting other parts of her body. She slowly became a different person. She was someone new, someone foreign that we didn't really know. And I just distinctly remember the first time she didn't remember who I was, and that killed me. It made my heart ache. It made my body hurt. It was so strange to think that someone that had cared for me for so long no longer knew who I was, but I wanted to care for her so bad. As she slowly drifted and became harder to serve her, honestly, being patient and gracious was just something that I dug so deep inside that I would remember having conversations with my mom, just not knowing how to do it. And it could have been so easy to say no, like we need to send her somewhere else. This is too hard for us. But my mom, like I said, she is diligent in her work. She is motivated and she is loving. And she wanted to care for her mother until she couldn't any longer, until it was no longer, we were no longer capable of doing so. She passed away last year. And so as I look back, I see the ways that God has provided the ability for me to understand what unconditional, non-contingent love looks like. I understand what it looks like to be able to give of yourself and to love someone in that way, in that capacity, because I was able to do that with my grandmother. The concept that was so confusing and kind of out of whack that I had with my father, love, acceptance, affirmation, was so redeemed in the way that I was able to be with my grandmother, in the way that my mom has loved me, in the way that I saw my mom love my grandmother. But it wasn't even until she passed really last year that I realized those things. It was through really my relationship with my Gigi that I realized that the Lord is so present, so providing of all of these things for me and the people that I just wasn't looking for. I had no other reason than pure love and respect that I had for my grandmother to serve her. I wasn't really receiving anything physically in return. I was honestly very spent emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I was drained. But it was through those years that I came to understand the Father's heart for his children. I only have began to understand the vast and complex love that is, that I too am his child, that is intimately known and cherished, and that's simply because I am his, and that's it. I know my story does not end there, and I have to choose to daily wake up and choose forgiveness toward my father, my earthly father, but then choose to turn on to the other side and bask in the love, affirmation, and provision that the Lord has granted me with the people around me. With that, my name is Chelsea Goza, and I too am made in the image of God. Thanks.
Biola University prepares Christians to think biblically about everything, from science to business to education and the arts. Learn more at biola.edu.